Welcome to another episode of Erik Wait Whiskey Studies, and in this video, going to talk about Blair Athol Distillery. Now, there are currently around 140 distilleries in Scotland, 6 grain distilleries which are not open to the public. Of all the distilleries that are open to the public, out of that 140, probably around 80 distilleries or so. And then there are distilleries that primarily produce malt to go into blends, and they can be a little challenging to come by in terms of getting an actual distillery bottling. Blair Athol is one of those distilleries. So, gonna put a little drop into this one, give it a wee little roll, and then I'll tell you a little bit about it. So Blair Athol is actually a really old distillery, and they have a visitor center, and they get a lot of foot traffic. And yet here in the United States, go to your liquor store, go to even a fine whiskey shop, look online, and you're not going to see a whole lot of Blair Athol. Watch whiskey tuber videos. You're not going to hear a whole lot of people talking about Blair Athol. Essentially, it comes down to one distillery bottling that isn't available here in the United States. And then you have a lot of independent bottlers, such as the Scotch Malt Whisky Society. So I'm going to tell you a little bit more about Blair Athol Distillery, the history, the production, available bottlings, and then I'll tell you a little bit about this one. Blair Athol Distillery is a Highland single malt Scotch whisky distillery located on the south edge of Pitlochry in Perthshire, near the River Tummel in Scotland. The Alder Burn, or river, gives the name to Blair Athol Distillery, and in Gaelic it means the burn of the otter, so the brand's logo is an otter adjacent to a burn. The history of Blair Athol Distillery. In 1798, the distillery was founded by John Stewart and Robert Robertson. Originally, the distillery was named Alder after the Alder Burn, but the distillery was closed soon after opening. In 1825, the distillery opened again and changed ownership to John Robertson. In 1860, it was sold several times in the period thereafter, going from John Robertson to Alexander Conacher and Company, which was then inherited by Elizabeth Conacher. In 1882, the distillery was sold to Peter Fraser and Company, and again to Peter Mackenzie of P. Mackenzie and Company Distillers Limited. In 1932, the distillery was closed. The mothballed distillery was then bought by Arthur Bell & Sons, but it didn't open again until it was rebuilt in 1949. In 1973, the distillery was expanded, adding 2 further stills to the previous 2. In 1987, Guinness combined the businesses of Arthur Bell & Sons and Distillers Company Limited. In 1997, Guinness merged with Grand Metropolitan to create Diageo, the current owner of Blair Athol Distillery. Blair Athol Distillery production. They use an 8.2-ton semi-lauter mash tun. They have 6 stainless steel washbacks with a blend of 46-hour short fermentation and 104-hour long fermentation. And they have 2 pairs of stills. Blair Athol Whiskey is released as the Blair Athol 12-year-old Flora and Fauna single malt Scotch whiskey, bottled at 43% alcohol by volume, and Bell's blended Scotch whiskey, bottled at 40% alcohol by volume. These bottlings are a little challenging to come by in the United States. It is also bottled by various independent bottlers such as Scotch Malt Whisky Society Cask number 68. The Blair Athol 11-year-old single malt Scotch whiskey, cask number 68.73, Forever Young. The whiskey was matured in refilled recharred hogshead, aged for 11 years. It was distilled in February 2010. It's bottled at 58.6% alcohol by volume, The United States had an allocation of 96 bottles and it sold for $125. So I'm not seeing any of the Flora and Fauna series here in the United States. So if you're over in the UK or somewhere in Europe, you've probably seen them. The only time I've ever seen Blair Athol are independent bottlers such as the Scotch Malt Whisky Society. So, in fact, if you really want to study all 140 distilleries, you're going to have to go outside of the official bottlings to study some of those distilleries. And the Scotch Malt Whisky Society produces, or they get casks, they get spirit from some of those distilleries. There's around 30 or so that they bottle that, other than maybe other independent bottlers, you're not going to be able to find official bottlings. By the way, I'm not advertising. This is not sponsored by the Scotch Malt Whisky Society. Really, really nice. I get a distinctive creme brulee, dried peaches, a little bit of lemon. Have you ever had apple chips, like dried apple chips? Vanilla, a very distinctive, that malty character. There's just a waft of like a toasty, it's not smoke like peat, but it's like a toasty smoke. Almonds, definitely almonds on the palate. It's sweet, confirmed on the palate what I got on the nose. It's a creme brulee character. Dried peaches, hints of almond, so that a little bit of that nutty character. Vanilla, dried apples, nice round mouth coating feel. I barely put any water into it, and that just does it just fine. Now, Eric, why are you telling us about a bottle that we're probably not going to get due to its limited availability here in the United States, even if you are a Scotch Malt Whisky Society member? Because maybe you're not going to be able to get this exact bottle, but if you're a member of the Scotch Malt Whisky Society, you're going to want to look for anything from 68. So it's number 68 is a Blair Athol Distillery with the Scotch Malt Whisky Society. Or you're going to want to keep your eyes out, perhaps some other independent bottler that produces and releases at cask strength. Now, what I want to know from you is, have you ever had an official bottling from Blair Athol, perhaps one of the Flora and Fauna bottling? And if so, let me know down below what you think. If you've had maybe another bottle, maybe this one, or maybe another one from the Scotch Malt Whisky Society, or another independent bottler from Blair Athol, let me know down below. I want to hear more from you about Blair Athol Distillery. This is a superb whiskey. I think it's really, really complex. Got a lot of nuanced notes going on there. It's not like one big note all the way through. There's just little hints and subtleties, particularly that little bit of that creme brulee, a little bit of that toasty character, and that hint of almond in there as well. I give this a solid 90 out of 100 points. Alrighty, if you like watching my content, you've not yet subscribed, I ask you to subscribe, ring the bell to be notified when I go live or post a video. And until next time, Slanja. Hey, don't forget to subscribe and check out these other whiskey videos.